Alright, how's it going, everybody? Today I'll be going over Beam Instruction 1610.13. The stuff I'm going to highlight today is stuff that I have seen in advancement exams, or I think potentially it can be in an advancement exam. I went ahead already and highlighted most of the stuff that were that I thought were important. So without further ado, let's begin. So one, obviously, you gotta try to remember the actual instruction, Beam Instruction 610.13. Also, the purpose. A lot of times, what I try to do is try to hone in the key words that are in the information that's relevant. So, for assessment activities in Navy fixed, shore base with permanent structures, and non-fixed, movable shore fleet base. So, Navy fixed and non-fixed is kind of keywords I remember. For the background, the QA program was originally issued in 1984 to standardize QA activities within Naval Medical Command. One of the other ones I think I've seen is the Navy Medical Department Policy Procedures and Responsibility for Naval DTFs ashore and afloat were issued in 1987. So this is another date I would remember. Who does this apply to? Who does this instruction apply to? Well, it applies to all healthcare personnel providing services in naval MTFs and DTFs, so medical treatment facilities and dental treatment facilities, fixed and non-fixed. I definitely remember that. I'm not sure if they'll ask you this question based on the JCO. I know they used to be big on asking you the acronym JCO, but I know they've changed it recently. So if they do ask it, of course, they go by the instruction because that's what they should be questioning you on. So fixed MTFs and DTFs, meaning applicable criteria must gain and maintain accreditation by the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Health Care Organizations. The Joint Commission. All right, this is one I've always seen on the exam. So routine QA program related documentation must be maintained in secure location for a period of 5 years. So I work in a lab, and I usually work pretty close to our QA. The QA is obviously we try to put it's for quality assurance, so they tend to keep documents longer for the purposes for these inspections a lot of times. So I know usually other instructions, other when it's like general documentation, it's usually like 2 to 3 years, but the QA is 5 years. Another one they usually ask is QA inquiries and medical records related to a potentially compensatory event and Judge Advocate General. The JAGMAN basically must be maintained in a secure location at the local command for a minimum of 2 years. So this one's 2 years for the Judge Advocate General. And of course, QA program objectives. So for this one, I try to again, don't get too lost in the wording. I hone in on like the specific key words that are in these sentences. So, for example, the QA program, their objective is to systematically monitor service provided to identify opportunities to improve patient care. I double highlight improve because that's like something that I gravitate towards. Identify and assess decreased risk. Again, that's what I would highlight. Justify resources. A lot of times, usually the first words that kind of just make me think, oh, this is the answer right here. So justify resources needed to maintain, preferably exceed considerable standards of patient care services. Communicate. So communicate important QA information to affect sound clinical and management decision making at all levels of the organization. Right? That's what the QA does. We always communicate, trying to improve ourselves as far as the results we're giving or the patient treatment we're given. Also QA, quality assurance, right? They integrate, they track, and they trend. Support credentials, review, privileging activities following. I'll cut that out. Identify educational and training needs. Of course, QA, they're consistently asking us how to improve, or if something went wrong, they can identify it for educational purposes. And in order for us to avoid certain mishaps, for example, again, on lab, I'm just going to give you a lab example. You know, if something goes past the stat hour where it has to be, you know, we're going to try to find out and how to resolve that. So that's what the QA does. QA program requirements. I didn't really see too much on that. It's a lot of verbiage. Let's see. Okay. So utilization review. I've seen that a couple of times. MTFs and DTFs will have utilization reviews programmed to monitor resource use and to recommend ways to balance some mission statements with existing healthcare resources. QA programs committees. So yeah, the QA program committees. Inpatient fixed MTFs must have the following standing committees. So inpatient fixed MTFs. What should they have? They should have ECOMS, QA committee, safety committee, and infection control committee. Right? Fixed ambulatory care medical facility must have the following. So they have different requirements, right? ECOMS, they must have ECOMS and QA committee. All right. We'll go into the responsibilities. Okay, so the Chief Bureau of Medicine and Surgery. So out of this, the one I've seen is submits an annual QA program summary report required by reference A. So they submit annual QA program summary reports. Okay, and so fleet commander and chiefs, so their responsibility is ensure that subordinate commands comply with this instruction. So that's the fleet commanders and chiefs' responsibility. So the type commanders. So these type commanders, remember, keywords in these sentences is implement and coordinate a TICOM-wide QA program. So on other responsibilities, you might see the same thing. They might implement, but finding out exactly what they implement is very important. So again, implement TICOM-wide QA programs. That's the TICOM. Officers in charge of Naval Healthcare Support Offices. So they provide technical support and assistance for QA-related issues on request to fix and non-fix naval medical and dental activities. I've seen that. Provide technical support. I think I had that highlighted only initially, but I ended up highlighting the whole thing. But provide technical support. So officer in charge of Naval Healthcare Support Offices. Look at that. It's the word support. Support. Commanding officers. So now we're going to their responsibility. So commanding officer in charge and senior medical and dental department representative of treatment facilities. They implement an effective, flexible, integrated, and comprehensive QA program guided by a written plan. They're guided by a written plan already. They have certain criteria they have to meet. This is a big one I've seen on the test as well. Navy School of Health Science, Bethesda, Maryland. They conduct 2 educational workshops each year. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that in an exam. I've always seen that on an exam. Especially when they have this instruction in your bibs. There's only so many questions I can pull from this chapter. And that's one of the ones they always go to. So I would definitely highlight that. So I've seen this on an exam. The line commander and healthcare support to reach BUMED by 15 January of each year. So must forward an annual assessment of the preceding fiscal year's QA program to Med 3C4 with a copy to the cognates responsible line commanders. But what? By what date? By 15 January of each year. I mean, 15th January, I mean, close to the beginning of the year. Everyone's on holiday, so you know they gotta wait. They gotta wait until everyone comes back, right? All right. So your TICOM. So your TICOM was forward an annual assessment of the preceding fiscal year. Again, to Med 3C4, and then of course 15 January of each year. Let's see. And that's basically all the stuff I've really seen, honestly. And then the next is definition and acronym. So Human Instruction 6010.13. So they do ask the validation. So validation is done through a peer review process. So they'll ask it a determinant concerning a monitored outcome confirmed through what? So validation is a determinant concerning a monitored outcome confirmed through what process? In this case, the answer would be peer review process. I almost think that's almost exactly how they asked it. Delinquency. I've seen that one. So a medical record is considered delinquent. They'll ask you what a medical record is considered if all required record components are not completed within the 30 days of patient discharge. They'll put in like unsat or some other word in there, but the word is considered delinquent. I've seen that many times on the exam. Or when is it considered a delinquent? It's considered delinquent when record components are not completed within the 30 days of patient discharge. So that's another way they ask that question, actually. Deficiency. So what is the deficiency? What is deficient? The state in which there is a variance from pre-established minimally acceptable standards of care. There's a variance. That's considered a deficiency. Nosocomial infection. Seen that plenty of times as well. An inpatient acquired infection not present or incubated at the time of admission. So basically, they again admitted for something else, and then they end up getting this infection afterwards. Infection is considered nosocomial if it first becomes apparent 72 hours or more after admission. So peer review. So the process by which practitioners of the same or like discipline, I highlighted that because that's the key words I always remember when they ask that question. Practitioner of the same or like discipline. That's I already gravitate towards like discipline and peer review. So we'll read the rest. Evaluate the outcomes of QA program related monitoring activities. But the key word is practitioner of the same like discipline. It's peer review. Potentially compensatable event. I've seen many questions on this one as well. And so let's get into it. Potentially compensatable event. An event or outcome during the process of medical or dental care in which the patient suffers a lack of improvement, injury, or illness of severity greater than ordinary experienced by patient with similar procedures or illnesses. So there's 3 of them: non or minor, temporary, long-term, permanent. So when I first started, I definitely had issues remembering this, but the more you read things, you start picking up on little things. So none or minor, right? Misdiagnosis of fracture recognized at a later date and healing with no residual deformity. So basically, it happened to me where they missed a fracture that I had, but they after I went back and they actually find diagnosing things saying something was broken, it was already healing up, so it really didn't do much. It was none or minor. So that's an example of that. Another one for temporary. So a temporary is a appendectomy with a single postoperative episode of sepsis. So yeah, you're gonna be sick for a little bit, but other than that, it's gonna heal eventually. And then long term is something it's gonna stick with you for the rest of your life for the most part. So loss of a thumb or finger. Those are the things I think of. Loss of a thumb or finger. You're never gonna get your finger back. So. What else? Again, healed forearm fracture with loss of motion, wrist or elbow. It's long term. Those are the ways I differentiate between none or minor, temporary, long term. Continuous quality improvement. I've seen this one. Let's see. Let's pick out some keywords in this one. So a structured approach with continuously analyzes clinical. So continuing analyzes clinical. It would be some keywords I just gravitate towards because it's in the name, continuous quality improvement. Oh, and an administrative process within preset boundaries using various analytical tables. The goal is to improve efficiency and effectiveness of such process by addressing and eliminating special cause variations, eliminating non-value adding steps, identifying and solving process problems, making other carefully planned, tested changes to reduce overall process. So continuously analyzes clinical keywords that I've seen, and so the way they do this is how they continuously improve is by using analytical tables. You got to analyze through a series of time to see how you can improve something. The goal is to improve, right, efficiency and effectiveness. I've seen that. What's the goal of continuous quality improvement? So it's to improve efficiency and effectiveness. And then we're down to our acronyms. So our acronyms, there's a couple I've seen on there. So, for example, I seen ECOMS, Executive Committee of Medical Staff. I've seen continuous quality improvement. Yeah, CQI. I think they gave me the acronym. OCONUS outside the continental United States. And yeah, I think there was one more thing on here so like we spoke about before. So you forward the Med 3C4 the assessment within 30 days of the event for all PCEs. Participable compensatable event, and that's it. That's the instruction.